This is the scratch-awl, AWL, scratch-awl. The scratch-awl is for creating a pilot hole in your wood so that the drill bit can drill easily through the wood. See the pilot hole. Scratch-awl. This is the tri-square. The tri-square is used for measuring your wood and plastic, and it's also for finding a right triangle or a 90-degree angle. By placing the edge of the tri-square against the wood, you get a perfectly 90-degree angle for which you can draw lines. You need to watch out on the tri-square as to where the 0 is. On this one, 8 inches is over here and 0 is over here. So you would start from here and count upward, not from this side. If you flip it around, however, 0 is right here and 8 is over here. So if I need to measure 1 inch across the wood, I would start here and go over to the 1 inch. Then I would use the tri-square to draw a line at the 1 inch. This tri-square right here is a little different. 0 is on this side and it goes all the way up to 8 inches. However, on this side, 0 is not here. 0 is way back here. So by placing it up right here and measuring over 2 inches, that's wrong. 2 inches starts from here, not from there. So you would have to start from the edge. Both of them give you a 90-degree angle, and that's the main purpose for this tool. This is the C-clamp. The C-clamp is useful for clamping objects together or to something. Now you can work on this without having to hold it. The C clamp, like the letter C. These are the adjustable clamps. You can adjust how big they open and shut using this one or this one. Notice right now they're parallel. This is a parallel line with this one. If you open them both at the same time, they'll remain parallel. But if you shut one or the other, they will not remain parallel. You can open and shut these really quick by spinning them around. These are very useful when holding small objects to be drilled at a later time on the drill press. This way I can drill this on the drill press and just hold on to the clamp. This is the bench vise. This bench vise is for holding wood or plastic objects. Notice the jaws that clamp together have wood inside them. That's so when you clamp another piece of wood in the vise, it doesn't scratch or ding the surface of the wood. The bench vise. This is for wood or plastic. This is another bench vise, but it's for clamping metal. The jaws on this vise that close together are made out of metal, and if you put wood or plastic in this, it'll scratch and mar your surface. This is useful for holding the axle, the metal axle of your car, if you need to remove the wheel from it, or if you need to cut the axle. If you need to cut the axle, you insert the axle into the vise right at the point where you want to cut. So if I want to cut right here, I would not put it in the vise with this much sticking out. I would put it in the vise with only that much sticking out. Now I could cut this is for metal only. If you look carefully at a piece of wood, the wood has grain going through it. This is the direction that the tree grows. So the tree would be growing up. If you look on the end of the grain, you can kind of see where the rings of the tree were. So the rings of the tree kind of went in a circle this direction on this piece of wood. You can also see on this piece of wood where some of the bark is. The grain determines which kind of saw you're going to use. If you're cutting across this direction, you're cutting across the grain. If you're cutting in this direction, you're cutting with the grain. What do you think the end of the grain is called? It's called the end grain. Pretty simple. If you're going to cut across the grain, you use the back saw. The back saw. It's also called a crosscut saw because you use it to cut across the grain. If you're going to cut with the grain, you use the rip saw. R-I-P, rip saw. The rip saw is for cutting with the grain or ripping the wood. This is the rip saw. This is the crosscut saw or back saw. This tool is the hacksaw. The hacksaw has a blade on it for cutting metal. You can buy different blades for this for cutting plastic or aluminum or steel, but we have a general purpose blade on here that we use for cutting metal, such as the metal on the axles for the race car. When you cut, make sure that you use the whole saw. Don't just use a small portion of the saw like this. Use the entire saw. This will be sharp and hot after you cut it. That was the hacksaw. This is the coping saw. The coping saw is for cutting tight turns with a handsaw. The coping saw is only for wood. Never use it for metal. This is the miter box. The miter box is for hand cutting a straight line across your piece of wood. You can also do a 45-degree line or a 45-degree line this way. To use the miter box, you take the crosscut or back saw and place it in the miter box and begin to cut. When you cut using the miter box, hold your object against the back of the miter box. Not the front, but the back. Place your saw where you want to cut and begin to cut. Keep your saw level. This will give you a perfectly 90-degree cut. If you place your object towards the front of the miter box, as you cut, it'll try to rip it out of your hand. If you place it in the back, it'll try to pull it against the back and it'll have no place to go. You can also use this for 45-degree cuts, this way or this way. This is the Forstner bit. Forstner bit. F-O-R-S-T-N-E-R. Forstner bit. The Forstner bit is for drilling large holes through your wood, like this one. Place the Forstner bit in the drill press and drill through the wood. When using the Forstner bit to drill a hole, place the Forstner bit into the drill press. Tighten it up with the chuck key. Then place your project underneath the Forstner bit. An easy way to clamp using the Forstner bit is to clamp the wood to itself, meaning that you don't need to clamp it to the table. Then you can hold on to the clamp while you start and begin drilling. This is the spade bit. S-P-A-D-E, spade. It's for drilling large holes in your piece of wood. The way to remember this bit is it's like a playing card, like a heart, a diamond, or a spade. Spade bit. When you place a spade bit into the drill press, the jaws of the chuck, should only go down to this part where it's six-sided, not to the round part. Just like that. You don't want to put it all the way into the machine like that. Only up to the six-sided part. This is the V-block. The V-block is for drilling holes in a round dowel. The nice thing about the V-block is it holds the dowel in place while you drill the hole into it, so it doesn't roll around while you're trying to drill it. You'll use the V-block and hold on to your dowel while you drill it, like this person did. This is the tap and die set. The tap and die set are for creating threads on the outside of a dowel and the inside of a hole. Like this. And as a set, they'll make the threads that screw together. To use the die, you place your dowel, the round piece of wood, the dowel, into the can of oil and let it soak. After it's soaked for a while, pull it out and place it here in the vise. Pull the dowel out of the can and let the oil drip off. Make sure you have a napkin handy before you do this so you can clean off the dowel. Don't let the oil drip all over the bench. Place the dowel into the vise. There's a hole right here. Slide it all the way down into the hole and tighten it up. Now use the die to place threads onto the dowel. Just go around in a circle like this until the bottom of this touches the top of the vise. Then come back up. Now the threads are complete. To use the tap, drill a hole in the object that you want to tap the threads into and place that object in the vise. Now take the tap and make sure these grooves are cleaned out. There shouldn't be any sawdust in there. If there is, clean it out using the scratch-all. Dip the tap into the oil. Let the excess run off into the can, not onto the bench, and place it in the hole. Now, twist this slowly and carefully. Make sure that it doesn't wobble around as you twist it. Keep it nice and straight. It may help to twist from the closer to the inside than on the outside. Twist this until this goes all the way down into the block. Just like that. Now slowly come back out, keeping it straight. Don't let it wobble around. Before you put this away, make sure you clean out the scraps of wood. And now you should have some threads. This is the brace and auger bit. The brace, B-R-A-C-E, and auger bit, A-U-G-E-R, auger. The brace and auger bit are just basically a hand drill. The auger bit goes into the brace right here. Notice the auger bit has kind of a pyramid shape on the top. It fits into the brace and then you tighten it up. Just like that. To use the brace and auger bit, place the tip on the point where you want to drill. Place your hip against the edge of it and drill. You want to keep this in a straight line, and your hip helps do that. If you just use your hand, sometimes it wobbles around back and forth. Once the point begins to poke through on the other side, pull it back out. Flip the piece of wood around and continue drilling the rest of it. That way you'll get a nice clean hole on this side and on this side. If you just go through all the way in one direction, it'll blow out the other side. This is the Surform, S-U-R-F-O-R-M, Surform. The Surform has a nickname, the cheese grater, because it's just like a cheese grater that you'd use to grate cheese. The Surform helps to shape the end of the object just as the cheese grater shapes the end of the cheese. This is better for use on foam or plaster or very easy substances to cut through. You would not want to use this on wood. It would work, but not very well. This is the Surform. This tool is the rasp. The rasp has a very jagged edge right here with teeth sticking out of it for chewing up the wood. The rasp also has a file on one side of it. If you look at the rasp, the bottom of it is flat and the top of it is kind of round. So there's the rasp and the file on the round part and the rasp and the file on the flat part. To use the rasp, place your object in the vise and tighten it firmly with a piece of it sticking out. Now use the rasp side to round over or chew away your wood. It doesn't leave a very smooth surface, however, it does shape the wood. Now you can use the file side to smooth it out. This tool is for shaping the wood. Use the rat tail file and rat tail rasp to shape the wood also, but you get more of a round pattern. I also have smaller ones for getting into more intricate areas. Use the sanding blocks to sand your object after you've shaped them using the shaping tools. It's much faster to shape it using the shaping tools than it is to use the sander. So shape it with this tool first, then sand it last with the hand sander. This is the block plane. The block plane. The block plane is for making sure the surface is nice and flat. Notice when I set the tri-square on my piece of wood and line it up here, you can see that this edge is not perfectly flat. It's not 90 degrees to this edge. It dives down over here. So take your block plane and set it on your object. But don't set it flat on the object. Set it at the proper angle. Now just slowly take a little bit away at a time. Go back and keep checking your work. I'm a little low here and still low over there. Pretty close. and now it's flat. When working on the end grain of the piece of wood, remember the grain goes up and down, so this is the end grain. You have to make sure that you don't run the knife from the edge all the way to the other edge. So as I'm doing this, I only want to start on one side and go into the middle, like that. Don't run it all the way through off the edge. So I'm just going through to the middle here. Now if I had to do the other side, I would flip this around and do the other side. If I go all the way through, it will chip the wood on the other side. See how it becomes all chipped? So you can only go halfway through and then flip the wood around and do the other half. Only on the end grain. You don't have to worry about doing it the long way with the grain, just on the end grain. This is the scroll saw. It's for cutting very intricate shapes on small objects. You can do really tight turns, like if you were going to cut out a jigsaw puzzle. To turn it on, you just turn the switch and you actually turn it down instead of up. Now the saw blade goes up and down really fast. So if I just place this up next to it, the piece of wood up and down really fast. You have to hold the wood or the plastic down to the table and allow it to cut. Now you have to go really slow because that blade is super thin, and if you push too hard it'll break. But the nice thing about this saw is that you can cut weird shapes. Like this one here, where you could not do that on the bandsaw. Two things you need to remember. Make sure you hold it down to the table and make sure you go slow because this blade here is very easy to break. Also, make sure you wear your safety glasses.